We are continuing our 2020 NHL Stanley Cup Playoff Preview and Predictions. Today we're taking a look at the 4 play-in series in the Western Conference, and that's coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, today we're doing our preview and predictions for the 2020 Stanley Cup Playoffs in the Western Conference. So we're looking at the 4 play-in series. Of course, we got 24 teams starting off in this Stanley Cup playoff format. We're going to be down to 16 here once this play-in series are completed. So, of course, if in case you missed it, we did already complete the Eastern Conference previews. I will link it up here in the YouTube cards, and I'll also put it on the pinned comment at the top of this video as well. So if you haven't already had the chance to check out that video, go ahead and do so, because I'd love to know what your thoughts are and what your predictions are for those series as well. So let's dive in here and kick things off with the first series we're going to look at in the Western Conference, which will feature the Calgary Flames and the Winnipeg Jets in the Battle of Western Canada here. So let's take a quick look at their regular season statistics. Of course, both teams had decent years, but not phenomenal. Both teams kind of took a step back in regular season play compared to the year before. The Calgary Flames finished the season at the pause with a record of 36, 27, and 7, with the Winnipeg Jets having a record of 37, 28, and 6. So not a great deal of difference between the two teams. If we look at the goals for and against, Calgary scored 204 goals compared to Winnipeg's 213, whereas Calgary allowed 214 compared to 201 for the Winnipeg Jets. So certainly the Winnipeg Jets are a slightly more offensive team and slightly better defensive team as well. Now, looking at special teams, the Calgary Flames had a power play of 21.2 compared to Winnipeg's 20.5. So not a great deal of difference there. Calgary Flames had a penalty kill of 82.1 compared with Winnipeg's 77.6. So that very well could be an advantage to Calgary if these kind of trends continue when it comes to special teams. Now, of course, many people, though, are kind of wondering for the Calgary Flames, is this their last kick of the can to really make some playoff damage before GM Brad Treliving maybe makes some significant changes and kind of changes up that core group of players within that team? Could we see a significant trade like a Johnny Gaudreau, a Sean Monahan, or something substantial to that effect if we do not see playoff success, especially if they lose early on against the Jets here and don't even make the official round 1 of the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs? That would be, a big-time step backwards in success around the playoffs, and the Flames are desperately lacking playoff success recently with this current group of players. I mean, last year we saw them have a tremendous regular season only to have their playoff hopes end early at the hands of the Colorado Avalanche, and many feel that the same fate with the Winnipeg Jets is going to cause significant change. Now, if you take a look at breaking down this series from different points of view, you have to give the goaltending edge to Winnipeg. Connor Hellebuyck has been one of the top goaltenders in the entire NHL. He's likely going to win the Vezina Trophy. In my opinion, he should have been nominated for the Hart, or at least he's definitely in the top 4 or 5 contenders for that trophy as well. He really was Winnipeg's MVP. And overall, like I said, he definitely has the edge here. David Rittich likely gets the start for the Calgary Flames, but they also have Cam Talbot. Looks like Rittich will be the starter to at least begin the series. But still, either way, edge goes to Hellebuyck. Now, of course, on the blue line, it's debatable here. I mean, you probably give a slight edge to the Calgary Flames, even though they will be without veteran Travis Hamonic, who has opted to not participate in this return to play-in series for Calgary due to personal family reasons. So Hamonic will not be in the lineup. Of course, they still have Captain Mark Giordano back there. They also have guys like TJ Brody. They have some youngsters like Rasmus Anderson. Certainly, a very dynamic blue line to some degree. Lots of experience back there, but a good combination of youth and experience. Whereas Winnipeg's blue line is somewhat depleted. Of course, last year during free agency and in the offseason, they really had some massive significant changes. They were pretty much forced to trade Jacob Trouba. They lost Tyler Myers and Ben Sherratt to free agency, and then when they came to training camp, Dustin Byfuglien decided not to play, and he's no longer with the club either. So they still have Josh Morrissey, who's still one of the better defensive defensemen around the NHL as well. And they certainly did pick up a few guys like a Dylan DeMello who will improve that blue line. But overall, I think Calgary's got the advantage here. Offensively speaking, I think Winnipeg's slightly stronger in the forward group. Obviously, they have guys like Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, Patrick Laine, Nick Ehlers, and more. Whereas the Flames have guys like Matthew Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan. It might sound like they're fairly comparable, but Winnipeg was having a better season before the pause. So I'm picking the Winnipeg Jets to win this series, but I do think it could be a 4 or 5 game really tight series. But if Connor Hellebuyck can continue to play like he was before the NHL pause, I do think the Jets have a major advantage and will go on to win this series. Now next up, let's take a look at the Edmonton Oilers versus the Chicago Blackhawks. Now let's take a look first at their regular season statistics, and we'll compare these two teams here. Obviously, Edmonton was having a pretty solid year, just missing out being in that top 4 group to get a bypass this round. They finished with a record of 37, 25, and 9, compared to Chicago's 32, 30, and 8. The Oilers scored 223 goals while allowing 215, and the Hawks scored 208 while allowing 214. So not a drastic difference there. Edmonton obviously scored a few more, but as far as goals against, pretty comparable. The Oilers have a major advantage in special teams. They had the top power play in the NHL, clicking at a really high rate of 29.5%, and they had the second best PK at over 84%. So the Oilers had tremendous special teams, and that could be a tremendous swing of the tide here for this series. Now, Chicago had a very anemic power play at 15.2, but a pretty strong penalty kill at 82.1. Now, of course, Chicago has all kinds of experience and leadership on their side. They will be without defenseman Brent Seabrook, who is recovering from multiple surgeries and has opted to not participate. He's not quite healed up and ready to roll yet. I'm not sure if that was completely his decision or if the team was involved in making that decision, but he's definitely not going to play. There's a lot of question marks around Corey Crawford, and I do feel without Crawford, the Oilers win this series quite handily. I think Corey Crawford at least gives Chicago a chance, and if he can play anywhere close to what we've seen in the past, he could possibly steal a game or two and make this series incredibly close and interesting. But I think, by the looks of things in the Oilers training camp, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and company are extremely ready to roll, very well prepared, and just too high octane of an offense for Chicago to shut down. I don't think they have the tools necessary to really slow down that Oilers offensive train. We're going to see, we've seen an improved blue line. We have a tremendously gifted offensive group of forwards. Goaltending could be questionable for the Edmonton Oilers, so I'm not sure how far and how deep they can make it in the playoffs overall, but I do think they have what it takes to get by this Chicago Blackhawks team, and I am definitely picking them to win this series, likely in 4, maybe even in 3 games. Now, next up, let's take a look at the Arizona Coyotes and the Nashville Predators. Now, let's take a look here at their regular season statistics, and we'll compare these two teams here. Now, the Coyotes are certainly a team surrounded by drama right now, and things are very different than when the NHL was paused, but we'll kind of analyze that here as we go. The Coyotes finished with a record of 33, 29, and 8, compared to Nashville's 35, 26, and 8. Now, Arizona Coyotes scored 190 goals, which is relatively low, while only allowing 183, which is really good. Then Predators scored 212 while giving up 214, so not quite as strong defensively as we've seen from the Preds in recent years here. Now, on special teams, the Coyotes had a 19.2% power play, which is, okay, but not fantastic. Their penalty kill was decent, though, at 82.7. On the Nashville side of things, they had a fairly anemic power play, 17.3%. They struggled with it for most of the year, and their PK wasn't much better at 76.1. So overall, we have to give a special teams edge to the Coyotes if everything continues to trend as it is. Now, of course, like I said, the Coyotes have been surrounded by drama lately. General manager John Chayka basically up and quit. Looks like he was given a major job opportunity by another franchise, another big time chance to move up here. Obviously, that kind of really soured the relationship between him and Coyotes' new owner, Alex Marullo, and now he's out as general manager. The team's in somewhat turmoil here. Hopefully, the players and the coaching staff can kind of ignore all that, put it all to the side here and focus strictly on the ice. Of course, you got Taylor Hall, one of the league's most biggest names when it comes to upcoming free agency, is deciding whether or not to stick with this team or maybe to test the waters. And really, if you're Taylor Hall, do you really want to get involved with more drama. I mean, that's what he's been trying to avoid. He put up his time in Edmonton. Things did not go well while he was there. Went to New Jersey, saw some success, but then it tailed off. Now he's in Arizona. The team got worse after he got there, even though he's a pretty good hockey player himself and did okay individually. But it seems to be this Taylor Hall effect, which is kind of weird. It's hard to explain, but teams have seemed to get worse after they acquire him, and they send. But at the same time, they tend to have really good luck with the draft lottery. So we'll see if there's anything to that if the Coyotes don't win this series. But ultimately, I think Nashville has a deeper team of players with more experience, and even though their offense struggled at times this year, I think they're going to be able to get through the Coyotes defense and have a shot at Darcy Kuemper. Kuemper's going to have to stand on his head for the Coyotes to win because they simply can't score anywhere near enough goals. I mean, Taylor Hall and Phil Kessel have been not getting it done. They were led by Connor Garland during the regular season, and I just don't think they have the firepower here. Now, Nashville's not exactly a super offensive team either, so I expect this to be a lower scoring affair. Goaltending is going to be key. Defense is going to be key. But I think the Preds' experience and some of those top guys like Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, Victor Arvidsson, Philip Forsberg are just going to be a little bit too much. They're going to take down the Coyotes likely in 3 or 4 games. Now, lastly here, let's take a look at the Vancouver Canucks and the Minnesota Wild. Now, of course, this is going to be a very interesting series. For many of the Canucks youngsters, be the first taste of playoff hockey. Let's take a look here at their regular season statistics between these two teams. The Vancouver Canucks, of course, finished with a record of 36, 27, and 6. While the Minnesota Wild finished with a record of 35, 27, and 7. Of course, the Vancouver Canucks scored 224 goals while giving up 214, while the Wild scored 218, giving up 217. Now, special teams, Canucks had a really strong power play, 24.2%, and a very decent penalty kill at 80.5%. Now, the Minnesota Wild also had a pretty good power play, not quite as good as Vancouver's though, 21.3%, while putting up a not so great 77.2% on the penalty kill. So obviously I think we can give a special teams edge here to Vancouver. Obviously if you look at the overall different aspects of this team, I think the blue line might give a slight edge to Minnesota. They do have some pretty good veteran guys there. You got Ryan Suter, you've got Jared Spurgeon, you've got Matt Dumba. You know, they do generate a lot of offense from the back end. There are a lot of experience back there. Whereas on the Vancouver Canucks side, you have Chris Tanev, who's certainly, been with the Canucks a while, but often injured, but certainly can be a leader back there. You get Quinn Hughes, the up-and-coming, very exciting defenseman. Be interesting to see what he can do in this series as well. You get Tyler Myers in his first year with Vancouver, Troy Stetcher, but overall, I do think Minnesota's blue line is a little bit stronger overall. Goaltending, though, I'm going to give the edge to the Canucks. Jacob Markstrom's been one of the better goalies in the NHL over the past couple of years. He's a very key piece for the Canucks to re-sign, and him having a really strong playoff is going to be very important to his next contract. So I can see him giving even an extra incentive here to really have a strong showing, whereas Minnesota, you're not sure if you're getting Darcy Kuemper. And in Minnesota's case, you're likely getting Devin Dubnyk, who really hasn't had a great year overall. Minnesota's lacking some firepower up front. You can look to some of the youngsters like a Kevin Fiala to likely steal the show. Maybe a Ryan Donato to come up big as well. Could be the last kick at the can for a guy like Mikko Koivu. But overall, this Canucks team is just far too loaded. They battled some injuries. They haven't seen a full roster with everybody available since the season was paused. But you've got Elias Pettersson. You've got Brock Besser, you got Tyler Toffoli, JT Miller's having an incredible year, you got Bo Horvat, and many others here that are looking to make a mark for this Canucks team to really move them forward as they come out of this rebuild and into playoff contention. And really, the Vancouver Canucks, I have no doubt, will be victorious over the Minnesota Wild. I think they'll take them down without too much trouble. Like I said, I'm giving to Vancouver the edge when it comes to goaltending, and in the forward group, I do give Minnesota, like I said, a slight edge in defense, but overall, Vancouver's just got way too much offensive power that even though Minnesota has a stronger blue line, it's not going to be enough to get the job done. And the Canucks win likely in a maximum of probably 4 games. So those are my predictions for the 4 play-in series for the Western Conference. Of course, like I mentioned before, I want to know what your thoughts and predictions are. So make sure you leave some comments on who you think will win each series so we can discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.